Hi guys, as a sensei, you will often be put in a position where you need to evaluate how a failure will affect your students. It's all very well just saying, well, they'll get over it if they fail a grading, or they'll get over it if they get beaten in a fight or a competition. But the fact is that some students won't get over it. Some students' egos are not at that stage yet where they're robust enough to deal with disappointment, especially students who have had issues in their past, or students who are just kind of fragile, shall we say. They're not very robust mentally yet. And I definitely think that our job as karate teachers, some people think that as a karate instructor, all we're trying to do is impart karate. But if the dough of karate means anything, I think that it's to make our students into better people, and ourselves, of course, into better people. And there's no point giving them a lesson which will end their journey there and then. So when you're evaluating whether or not to send students to gradings, you will often have to think, if this person fails this grading, how will that affect them? And I found myself in that position this week. I had a youngster who is a really terrific kid, really enthusiastic, really nice, but does take things to heart a little bit. And I felt that his chances of passing a grading were not guaranteed by any means. But I gave him the choice of whether to grade or whether not to grade, whether to attempt to grade, and he went along and failed, as I half expected that he might. And I didn't set him up to fail. If he performed the best he ever could on that day, he might have passed, but it was a bit of a push for him. But I felt that giving him ownership of the process of going to grade, giving him the responsibility of what would happen if he failed, and dealing with that was an important lesson for him as well. And he did fail and was very upset, and I'm hoping that he will come out of it a stronger person, because for him, getting another belt is far less important than becoming a little bit of his personality becoming a bit tougher, a bit more able to deal with disappointments. And his parents are lovely about it. I don't have a bad word to say about them, but there are times when parents will try and guilt trip you or blackmail you into passing them, or that they'll say, well, if he fails his grading, he'll probably quit. And it's like, well, we do need to consider that before we send students, especially if it's students who have a good chance of failing. I've sent a few students who have had a good chance of failing, simply because they thought they were ready and they were quite arrogant about it, and they needed to go along and find out that they weren't, and they needed to discover that it wasn't me holding them back, it's their own lack of focus that was holding them back. And when they're impartially judged, they still fail their gradings. And that's not to be spiteful to them, but just that they don't trust their own sensei, so they needed to go along and get that independent verification. But usually I don't send students unless they're reasonably ready to pass, and it would be at the evaluation of whether they're ready to attend a grading stage. I would speak to a parent, and if the parent said, oh, well, if he doesn't pass he'll probably quit, then that would probably be the time when I would say, okay, then I won't send them for a few more months yet. I'll wait until they're absolutely certain. If failing would be that detrimental to them, and perhaps over time I might give them other situations where they may have to cope with disappointment, to toughen them up a little bit. But then once they're at the actual grading, I won't consider if a parent says, well, if they fail this grading then they'll quit probably. I would say then, well, then that's your responsibility to make sure they don't. It's a partnership. It's not we're not the only, as senseis, we're not the only deliverers of knowledge. We're not the only. One of the things that really frustrates me about modern society is that many parents consider that they deliver their children to school and that's the end of their obligation to their children's education. And obviously that's not the case, because it's the support infrastructure and the policies that parents create, the environment at home that creates a child who wants to study, who wants to learn, or even who may not want to study, may not want to learn, but takes on the obligations of their position to maximise their education. And likewise, in a grading situation, if the child is the kind of child who might quit if they fail his grading, but they don't tell you that until the grading, then it's the parent's job to be reinforcing the value of what you're giving them. And often the best thing that a child can do is to fail their grading, because how they deal with that disappointment will do more for them than how they deal with success. You very often are not called upon to evaluate the way that you behave unless you have a failure. So yeah, I don't think it's fair for a parent to use emotional blackmail, but I'm sure that most of them don't mean it that way, but some do mean it as blackmail and not just a statement of fact that their child will quit. But the fact is that the parents need to take equal responsibility for their child's response to disappointments in life and in their karate journey, along with their sensei. You take care, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take the time to rate and comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. Thank you.